Hello, everyone. Today, I want to talk about the first day of school. I've always loved a first day of school, not the most popular opinion, but to me, it always symbolized the opportunity to connect with old friends I haven't seen all summer. I have the opportunity to be in new classrooms with new students, learning new things, and it was always really just like the chance to kind of do life all over again. Because life was school for most of my life thus far and continues to be that. And one of my more memorable first days of school was my first day of college. To me, that's like the epitome of a first day of school. It's the literal first day of your last real school section. And most people may have been a little bit nervous about that, but not me. I was packing my bags the second high school graduation was over. I was getting so excited just thinking about being in a brand new place in my case, being around a bunch of new people that I hadn't been growing up with, learning new things that I actually wanted to learn, learning them from different people that I hadn't known before, that had a bunch of lifelong experiences that I hope to one day gain. I was just like, this is gonna be great. And then I got here, and to no fault of the university, but it was not as exciting as I thought it was going to be. I was incredibly sick at a time that COVID was very prevalent on college campuses, so it made it really hard to engage with any people that were on my floor, go to any social gatherings that were happening. I was in a lovely double suite with a private bathroom, but I had no roommate, so it was just me and my thoughts for many, many, many nights. I would have loved to connect with my family back at home, but they were a little bit preoccupied, to say the least, as my mom gave birth to my now 3-year-old sister during my first weekend at school. And I would have loved to reach out to my friends, but when I looked at those folks that I had grown up with that were doing their time at their schools, none of them really seemed to be struggling in the same way that I was. And so all that excitement and that anticipation slowly started to translate into this question of, do I really belong here? And that's ultimately what I want to talk to you all about today, is what belonging is and how we can promote it in first-generation college students. But before I do that, let's talk about first-gen. So first-gen students are the first people in their families to go to college and complete a degree. We don't really have a blueprint kind of handed down to us from our parents that say, here's how to do the college thing, good luck, this is everything that I've learned. We have to figure it out on our own. We make up roughly 56% of the collegiate student population at this point. 5% of us are not going to complete any collegiate degree after our first year at the institution that we start at or any other institution. And a huge part of that is because we have reported feeling like we don't belong more often than continuing gen students. So folks that do have family members that have gone to college, they feel like they belong at much higher rates than first-gen students do. And I think that's a problem. I've identified 2 things that I think contribute to this problem. The first is that measures of collegiate success, not the most holistic measures. Similarly, the other problem is that the first-generation college student resources are also not very holistic. So let's take a look at problem 1. Most of the measures of collegiate success focus on academics, things like your GPA, the number of classes that you've taken, if you have any academic honors or scholarships, how much money you get after graduation in your job, all of which are incredibly important metrics, but academics is not the sole reason that people pursue higher education. I'm an out-of-state college student, so after my first year at university, I was charged $30,000, I had a 4.0 GPA, and I had one friend. The average college student is going to pay $200,000 for a 4-year institution. I'm sure I speak for most of us when I say we're hoping for a little bit more than a piece of paper at the end of that experience. That 4.0 GPA, by most collegiate success measures, says I was kind of killing it. I had the grades, I must have been acclimating real well despite having been an out-of-state college student. That one friend tells a slightly different story, one that's a little bit more sad, maybe a little isolated, maybe disconnected from campus. That one friend is more accurately depicting what my first experience was at university. So what can we do about that, right? I believe, simply put, the best way to improve belonging for first-generation college students is investing in resources beyond first-gen. When we think about the blueprint for belonging, we have to think about how we can make folks feel connected to campus. But that brings me to problem number 2. The first-gen resources are also not very holistic because they tend to focus on academics. They tend to teach us things like how to manage our time better, how to conduct research, how to write a collegiate-level paper, how to read a research study, all very important skills that anyone should have, let alone a first-gen college students. But they don't teach us too much about belonging and finding community. However, there are many other resources that may not say they're explicitly for first gen or exclusively for first gen that kind of fill in the missing spaces on our map of how to navigate, sometimes physically, but more so metaphorically, campuses. For me, intercultural spaces and departments, different identity-based and affinity-based organizations, social justice leaders, those were the folks that kind of filled in my map of how to move throughout my higher education experience. They taught me things like you should read your department newsletter if you want to find out what's going on and how to get involved. They taught me that you should take advantage of career preparedness early on if you want to get a good job. They taught me where the best places to study on campus were. And they taught me, most importantly, how to contact financial aid. Because I don't know a single student, first gen or not, that has never needed to contact financial aid. These are the folks that do an abundance of the work at bridging that knowledge gap between first gen students and continuing gen students. And they need to be invested in. They do such a great job because they see us and they nourish us for all that we are. They see first-gen students as siblings, as children, as people with values and perspectives and backgrounds and cultures and language, and they nourish all aspects of us holistically. And when we feel nourished, we feel comfortable. We feel comfortable being vulnerable and asking the silly questions and sometimes getting the silly answers. We feel comfortable expressing how we're actually feeling on campus. And when you name a problem, you can solve a problem. This comfort is so incredibly crucial to making sure that first-gen students feel like they belong on the campuses that they decide to be a part of. And so we have to invest in these resources. Again, they may not say they're explicitly or exclusively for first-gen students, but they're for first-gen students. Because there is no one make or model of a first-gen student. We come in many different fonts with many different backgrounds and experiences and identities that all deserve to be nurtured the same way our first-generation student identity needs to be nurtured. And so that does not mean we disinvest from first-gen resources, but we look a little bit more than just that identity. We're all very different, but we're united in our struggle to kind of do this college thing. But it's not just for us. It's for our families, for our futures, and for all of the folks that have struggled like first-gen students, and for all of the continuing gen students that have also struggled. When we invest in belonging for first-generation college students, we invest in the belonging for all students. But it does take all of us. It takes staff, admin, faculty, students, and families to really buy into belonging. Academics are incredibly important, but our sense of belonging is forever, and that's what really follows us into the places that we go into post-college. And so we have to invest all of our efforts, all of our time, and hopefully some money, into those different departments and organizations and the organizations that are student-led on campus as well. So the only thing that I have left to really ask you all is how we can get this started. Thank you.